Katie here from Propagate, and in this video I'm going to run through how to get good productive climbing beans in Scotland. These are a mixture of runner beans and climbing French beans. I sowed the seeds back at the beginning of April. You may have seen our time-lapse photography video of the beans emerging up out of their cells. Now these beans are destined for planting outside. Beans are really susceptible and vulnerable to frosts, very likely to die if they get frost damaged. Now I'm in Dumfries and Galloway, moved out here back in early April. Very lucky to have a polytunnel, which means I can do indoor production, but I have got some outdoor space as well. Now if you're going to sow your beans directly outside, you must do it after the last frost has passed, or you should really protect the seeds and protect young seedlings. And it's best to wait until we're well into the end of May or possibly early June in some parts of Scotland, because we can get quite late frosts in different parts of the country. So that's these ones. They're looking pretty healthy. I'm quite happy with those, but I'm not going to plant these out until possibly into the beginning of June. In the meantime, like I said, I'm really lucky to have this amazing polytunnel space, and that means that I can get some other stuff going indoors. So in this big long bed down the middle here, I have sown runner beans at the end and French beans at the front. So you might be able to see there's little circles of darker compost, and that's where the beans have been sown, and you might be able to see them popping out of the ground at that end over there. In between the rows, I've also sown, in this section, 2 rows of radishes, and in that section 2 rows of turnips. Radishes and turnips are both really quite fast growing, whereas beans are quite slow growing. Radishes and turnips will stay quite low and the beans will grow quite tall, which means that I should be able to get a crop of radishes and turnips out of the ground before the beans get too high and get too leafy and get in the way of the growing. So here are my runner beans that I have sown directly into the ground in the polytunnel. As you're probably aware, it's nice and cosy and warm in my polytunnel. It sometimes reaches temperatures of 35 or 40 degrees if I forget to open the windows. I sowed these runner beans on the 8th of May, so they've only actually been in the ground for a week. You can probably see the circles of compost. So what I've got here is the bare soil with a top layer of horse manure, and into that I made holes that were about between 4 and 6 centimetres deep, and into each of those holes I dropped 2 bean seeds. The reason we usually use 2 bean seeds is in case of failure to germinate. So if you put 2 in, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to have 1 successful plant. I've got a pretty good germination rate here, so there's 2 just there, there's 2 here and 2 here as well. I can see another one just coming. It's just popping itself up out of the ground. I never fail to get excited by the sight of seeds turning into little baby plants. I've been watching them do that for 25 years now, still really exciting. Yeah, so what you could do if you've sown your beans directly into the soil and you've got a good germination rate, is you could select the strongest plant, take the other one out, maybe plant it elsewhere or give it away to somebody else, or you could let them carry on growing, but they may outcompete each other, and you may find that you have a slightly less productive bean crop because they haven't got the space they need to thrive and grow. Now, it's normally good practice to put your bean poles up at the same time as you sow the seeds, which obviously I haven't done. It's good practice to do that, main reason being that if you start sticking stuff in the soil around the beans, you're in danger of damaging the fragile root systems, and you don't want to do that when the plants are really small and babies. However, I didn't do it, so I'm going to have to do it now. So for the rest of this video, that's what I'm going to show you how to do. It's pretty straightforward. While I'm here, I'll just point out the the double row turnips that I've got in the middle. And like I was saying earlier, I've grown these as what we call a catch crop, so they will be ready before the beans are shading them out and preventing them from growing. And for those that are interested, beyond that over there we've got the chard, some flashy butteroak, and some salad endive. And just one last thing on beans, when you're preparing the soil, it's really good to give them a really good nourishing start. They're very hungry plants. They like to have a good sort of nutrient rich compost, which is why I'm using horse manure. It's good for just about everything, high levels of nitrogen. What some people like to do is dig like a trench to put the beans directly into, and in the trench you can put a good layer of semi-rotted home generated garden compost. Comfrey leaves at the bottom of the hole as well will also give them a good nutrient rich start in life. But yeah, basically you need to make sure that the ground is suitably prepared, because they need lots of really good nourishment to get them going and turn them into healthy little plants. Just doing a bit of casual weeding here while I'm chatting. Okay, let's get on with those bean poles. I like to use hazel when I'm making my bean poles. I've always used hazel. It's one of my favourite trees to work with. The reason being is that hazel grows nice and straight and long and tall. This particular rod is probably about sort of 2, maybe 3 years old at the very most. Great thing about hazel, and also trees like willow, is that they quite often will grow in stands or stools, and you can cut them right at the base, and they grow back the following year, and they'll often multiply and grow back with more stems, which can grow again into nice straight poles like this. So I'm lucky, I live in a rural area, and I've got access to stuff like this. If you look about, you might also find it in some of the city parks and along the riversides. I know there's some by the River Cart in Glasgow, for example, where I used to live. Yeah, you can also buy bamboo poles, of course, and you can use willow, but be careful with willow, because if you plant it directly into the ground, it will try to grow. It's one of those kinds of plants that it grows its own root system very quickly from the stem from here. You can stop it from doing that by stripping off the outside bark. So you'd need, for example, a knife, and you would just strip off the outside like so. Again, if you were using willow, this would be important. I'm not using willow, I'm using hazel, so it doesn't matter, because my hazel's not going to try to grow. Okay, so this one I've prepared earlier. Just going to pop that back in the ground. Like that. Lean it against those just now. This is what your hazel will typically look like. Very long. This one taller than the polytunnel itself. So what I'm going to do is decide where I'm going to cut it. I want it to still be quite long, so the bean's got lots of space for growing up. So I'm going to cut it, I think, about here. I've got some secateurs in my pocket. Should be pretty easy. Just to cut through like that. Now, great thing about this is that you can then use that for your peas to climb up. So don't get rid of it, put it to the side over there. Taking care not to disturb your beans, insert the hole as far as you can into the soil till you feel like it's fairly solid and should be able to stand up more or less by itself. I couldn't really get this one much further in. There's probably a rock in the way. There's a lot of rocks in Galloway. Maybe that's alright. And then repeat. Then decide how long you want it. Pretty long. Cut that bit off. Chuck it to the side. Don't need that bit either. Make sure you've got a good pair of secateurs, they're really helpful. Again, push that into the soil. So you feel it bite. It's not quite done as much as I would like it to. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there because you get the idea, I'm sure. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you've got any more questions about how to grow good beans in Scotland, the same goes for runner beans as it does for French beans. Remember, they need lots of feed, they need warm soil, they're very vulnerable to cold weather and frosts, and you need to make them a nice solid structure like this to climb up. But yeah, any other questions? Just give us a shout through one of our social medias or by dropping us a message by the website. And remember, if you like what you're seeing, do remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We don't have any funding for the videos that we're making. We're just doing it because we think it's the right thing to do to help you all get on with your gardening journeys. So please do click that donate button, and even if it's just a quid or a fiver, please do throw in what you can, if you can. No pressure. Thanks. See you next time.